1. We're checking out this 1974 Chevy C10 I found on Craigslist, and let me tell you, this is one of those classic workhorses that's really caught my attention. The seller's asking $25,000, and let's break down what we're looking at here. This red beauty is rocking the original inline-6 engine paired with a manual 3-on-3 transmission. That's some old-school cool right there. With 88,000 miles on the clock, that's actually pretty reasonable for a truck pushing 50 years old. Now, I've got to be straight with you. There's no AC in this truck, which might be a deal-breaker for some folks, especially if you're in a hot climate. The clean title is definitely a plus, and the seller mentions it's in good condition. Looking at the price point, I'll be honest, $25,500 or best offer is sitting on the higher end for a 6-cylinder C10, even in today's market. These trucks have been climbing in value, but you might have some negotiating room there. What really makes these C10s special is their simplicity and reliability. That inline-6 is known to run forever with proper maintenance. If you're into classic trucks that combine style with functionality, this could be worth checking out, though I definitely want to see it in person and maybe negotiate that price a bit. 2. We're looking at a pretty sweet deal, a 1971 Chevy K10 4ARIC 4 that's caught my eye at $8,800. Let me tell you, for a classic K10, this price point is actually pretty reasonable in today's market. What we've got here is a running and driving small block V8 paired with a 4-speed manual. That's the kind of combination that makes these trucks legendary. The seller's been putting some real work into this thing. We're talking brand new Mickey Thompson wheels and tires, still with stickers, fresh battery, new fuel pump, and a rebuilt Edelbrock carb. That's some serious upgrades, folks. Now let's keep it real. There is some rust on the cab corners, which is pretty typical for these old K10s, but the seller's being upfront about it. The good news is that the rockers and floorboards are solid, which is crucial because those are usually the expensive fixes. The lift kit adds some nice presence, and with that V8 manual combo, this thing's got to be a blast to drive. For $8,800, considering the current market where these classic 444s are getting harder to find, this could be a solid buy. The mechanical upgrades alone are worth a good chunk of change. Just make sure to check out that cab corner rust in person. But hey, if you're looking for a classic 444 with some modern touches that you can actually use and enjoy, this K10 deserves a serious look. These trucks are only going up in value, and finding one that's both running and reasonably priced is getting tougher every day. 3. We're diving into something special, a 1965 Chevrolet CK10 that's currently listed for $29,900. Now let me be straight with you. This price point puts us in the territory of show-quality restorations, and from what we're seeing, this truck might just justify it. The seller's showing a jaw-dropping 5,924 miles on the odometer, which either suggests a restoration rollback or an incredibly preserved specimen. You'll definitely want to verify the history here. The combination of that red exterior with the tan interior is absolutely classic, and it's worth noting that this is an automatic transmission model, which is actually less common for these early CK trucks. This makes it more appealing for folks who want a classic daily driver or weekend cruiser without dealing with a manual. Now, let's talk real talk. $29,900 is serious money for a 65 CK, even in today's heated classic truck market. At this price point, you should expect absolutely pristine condition, perfect panel gaps, immaculate paint, and a spotless engine bay. The low mileage claim is interesting, but remember, with classic trucks, it's more about condition than miles. If you're considering this truck, you'll want to thoroughly inspect the undercarriage, check all the body mounts, and verify the authenticity of any restoration work. These trucks are absolutely legendary, and their values have been climbing steadily, but at this price point, you need to make sure everything is exactly as represented. It's a beautiful piece of American automotive history, but make sure you're getting what you're paying for. 4. We're checking out a pretty sweet 1966 Ford F100 that's popped up on Craigslist for $20,000 in Peoria, Arizona. Let me tell you, this one's got some interesting features that make it stand out. We're looking at a 352 V8 with that classic 3-on-the-tree manual transmission, a combo that's getting harder to find these days, especially in working condition. What's really catching my eye here is the seller's mention of zero rust. And being from Arizona, that's totally believable. With 45,000 miles showing, this truck's got some life experience, but it's still relatively low for its age. The seller's been honest about what's original and what's been updated. The cab cap and interior have been resprayed, and they've added new bench upholstery and a replacement dash pad. Here's what really impresses me: the recent mechanical attention this truck's received. We're talking a full tune-up, rebuilt carb, new water pump, and heater core. That's the kind of maintenance you want to see. All gauges and lights are working, which is sometimes rare in classics this age. Now let's talk value. $20,000 is sitting in the middle range for a well-maintained 66 F100. Given the mechanical work, zero rust, and that desirable 352 manual combo, it's not unreasonable in today's market. These trucks are climbing in value, and finding one that's both mechanically sound and rust-free is getting tougher. If you're in the market for a classic F100 that you can actually drive and enjoy right away, this one deserves a look. Just make sure to check that 3-on-the-tree shifting mechanism thoroughly. They can be finicky after all these years, but when they're working right, they're a blast from the past. 5. Let's talk about this 1978 Chevy K5 Blazer that's popped up for $20,900. First off, I've got to be straight with you. This is dealer pricing, so you're paying a premium over what you might find from a private seller. But let's see what we're getting here. This is a Cheyenne trim K5 Blazer with the classic 350 V8 5.7L, paired with an automatic transmission and 4x4. That's a solid powertrain combo that these trucks are known for. The copper exterior with tan interior is a perfect period-correct color combination, and with 56,000 miles showing, it's relatively low mileage for a 45-year-old vehicle. Now here's where we need to be cautious. The dealer mentions it's being sold as is and not inspected. That's a red flag, folks. At $20,900, you'd really want a thorough inspection before pulling the trigger. These K5s are known for rust issues, and the ad doesn't mention anything about the body condition or any restoration work. Being honest here, this price point is pretty steep for an uninspected K5 Blazer, even in today's hot market for classic SUVs. While these vehicles are absolutely climbing in value and the Cheyenne trim is desirable, you'd want to see documentation of any restoration work or maintenance history to justify this price tag. If you're seriously interested, I'd strongly recommend getting a pre-purchase inspection. Check for rust in the typical spots: rocker panels, wheel wells, and floor pans. Also verify if it still has its original removable top and check its condition. These K5s are awesome vehicles with a huge following, but at this price point, you need to know exactly what you're getting into. 6. We're looking at a 1976 Dodge D100 that's listed for $2,500. And let me be completely honest with you, this is a project truck that needs some serious love, but it might just be worth it for the right person. Let's start with the good stuff. You're getting a classic farm truck with the legendary 225 slant 6 engine and a 4-speed manual. That's a bulletproof combination. With 62,000 miles showing and being a 2-owner vehicle, that's pretty sweet. The seller's already done some decent work, including a carb overhaul, new clutch, exhaust manifold, rear brakes, and even threw in a Bluetooth stereo for good measure. Now, let's get real about the challenges. And there are quite a few. This truck isn't currently running due to electrical issues. It needs a complete wiring harness replacement, and that's just the start. We're looking at significant rust problems with large holes in the cab floor, currently covered by floor mats. Classic Band-Aid fix. The passenger door latch is busted, the speedometer doesn't work, and there are some tail light issues. At $2,500 though, this could be a solid buy. If you're handy with tools and aren't afraid of electrical work. These old Dodges are getting harder to find, and that slant 6 engine is known for being nearly indestructible. Just know going in that this is definitely a project, not a daily driver. The low-range rear end means it's not highway-friendly, tops out around 60 mpg, but that's perfect for a farm truck or local cruiser. Bottom line, If you're looking for a classic project truck with good bones and don't mind getting your hands dirty with some serious electrical and floor pan work, this could be your ticket into classic truck ownership. Just make sure you've got a trailer to get it home, since it's not currently running. 7. We're checking out this 1980 Chevy Scottsdale that's up for $14,000, and let me be completely honest with you. This one's got some character. And by character, I mean issues we need to talk about. The seller's being pretty upfront about this truck's condition, listing it as fair, and they're not kidding. We're looking at a straight 6 with an automatic transmission, and the odometer's already done the rollover dance. The current owner's had it since 2022 and claims to have invested about $13,000 into making it a daily driver, with work done at Calabasas Car Care. Now let's get real about what we're dealing with here. One fuel tank is leaking, so you're running on just the right tank. There are exposed wires in the interior. That's a safety concern, folks. And it's rocking what the seller calls patina charisma, which is a fancy way of saying it's got some rust and wear. The Bluetooth speakers work though, so there's that. At $14,000, I've got to be straight with you. That's pretty steep for a Scottsdale in fair condition with known issues. Even with the $13,000 in recent work, you're looking at a truck that still needs attention. The leaking fuel tank and exposed wiring aren't minor issues, they're safety concerns that need addressing. If you're into the patina look and don't mind some project work, this could be interesting, but I'd seriously negotiate that price. These Scottsdales are cool trucks with a growing following, but this one's price tag seems more aligned with a truck in better condition. Make sure to get a thorough inspection if you're serious, especially checking the frame, brake lines, and electrical system. Remember, sometimes the most expensive vehicle is a cheap classic that needs work. 8. We're checking out something pretty special, a 1966 Ford Falcon Ranchero listed at $18,000. These car-based pickups are getting harder to find, especially with a V8, so let's dive into what we've got here. This Ranchero's packing a rebuilt 289 V8 with an automatic transmission, and the seller's done quite a bit of mechanical work. Let me break down what's been refreshed. We're talking a rebuilt power steering system, new water pump, gas tank, radiator, starter, and various wires and hoses. That's some serious maintenance that gives you peace of mind. Now, let's keep it real. The seller mentions the paint is fair, which means it's not show quality, but hey, that's often just fine for a driver. With 8,500 miles on the clock, this Ranchero's seen some life, but that's not bad for a 57-year-old vehicle. The good news is all the emblems are present, which can be expensive to replace. And it's got some nice touches like custom floor mats and a new radio. At $18,000 firm, and the seller's pretty clear about no negotiations, you're in the middle range for Ranchero pricing. These vehicles are unique, not quite a car, not quite a truck, but definitely cool. The mechanical refreshing adds value, though you might want to factor in some paint work if you're looking for show quality appearance. If you're looking for a distinctive classic that you can actually drive regularly, this could be your ticket. The 289 V8 is a solid, reliable engine with plenty of parts availability, and these Rancheros have a strong following in the classic car community. Just remember to check all the usual rust spots in person, especially where the bed meets the cab. That's a common trouble area on these beauties. 9. We're looking at something pretty special, a 1975 Chevy Silverado C10 with a fantastic story behind it. Listed at $13,000, this is a true one-family truck that's been passed down from the original owners, and that kind of history is getting rare to find. Let's talk about what makes this truck interesting. We're looking at a 350 V8 with an automatic transmission, and it's got some period-correct modifications that really add value. A dealer-installed second fuel tank and dual exhaust system that have been there since new. The original fiberglass topper is still with it, which is pretty remarkable for a truck this age. What really catches my attention is the maintenance situation. The seller mentions a recent complete tune-up, and they've even updated the AC system, which is a huge plus, as these old truck AC systems can be nightmares. With 102,000 miles, it's been used but not abused, and they're being honest about the condition. A few minor dents but very little rust, which is crucial for these C10s. At $13,000, considering today's market for classic trucks, this is actually pretty reasonable. You're getting a well-maintained, family-owned truck with known history, working AC, and those original wheels with center caps still intact. The fact that it still has its original wheels and center caps is a nice touch that collectors appreciate. If you're in the market for a classic C10, this one deserves a look. The combination of documented history, recent maintenance, and relatively clean condition makes it an attractive option. Just make sure to check those typical C10 rust spots in person, around the cab corners and rocker panels. Even though the seller mentions minimal rust, it's always worth a thorough inspection. This could be a great driver quality classic that you could either preserve as is or gradually restore while still enjoying it. 10. Let's talk about this 1974 Chevy Cheyenne that's up for $9,000. And folks, this one's got some stories to tell. We're looking at a proper old-school 4X4 with some serious hardware under the hood. Let's get straight to the good stuff. It's running a 350 V8 paired with the legendary Rock Crusher 4-speed manual transmission and a Dana 44 axle. That's a bulletproof drivetrain combo that off-road enthusiasts love. The seller's thrown some money at the motor, and it's sitting on period-correct 70s Outlaw wheels wrapped in fresh 33-inch rubber. The 5-inch shackle lift is old-school cool. No blocks or oversized leafs here. Now, let's be real about the condition. This isn't your show truck candidate. The seller's refreshingly honest about the body condition. There are dings, scratches, faded paint, and rust everywhere. They're calling it patina, but let's be clear. This truck's been through some stuff. It's got its original plates, working KC lights, and even an old CB radio that's begging to be hooked up again. At $9,000, or best offer over $8,500, you're not paying for pretty, you're paying for potential and personality. The odometer's rolled over, so those 53,000 miles shown are definitely not original. But here's the thing. These square-body Chevys are seriously climbing in value, even rough ones. If you're looking for a genuine, no-nonsense 4x4 with some great mechanical upgrades and don't mind the worn appearance, this could be your ticket. Just remember, this is a project truck that you can drive while you work on it, not a weekend showpiece. The Rock Crusher transmission alone is worth some decent money if it's in good shape. 11. We're looking at an interesting 1984 Ford F-250 that's listed for $5,000, and let me tell you, this is a proper work truck with some stories to tell. Let's dive into what we've got here. It's running a swapped-in 351 Windsor from an '87 model, and the seller's even throwing in the original engine. That's a nice bonus. The current motor's got an Edelbrock 4-barrel carb, which should give it some decent power when properly tuned. Speaking of tuning, the seller's being upfront about it needing some attention. They suspect a vacuum leak, so factor that into your plans. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This truck's been a working machine for 14 years under the current owner, complete with snowplow duty. Plow included, but heads up, no armature. It's sitting on a flatbed, which is super practical for hauling, and the 4x4 system is still working. That's crucial for a truck of this vintage. Let's talk about the rough spots, because there are a few. The driver's side back window is busted, courtesy of a break-in that cost them their radio. And with 150,000 miles, this truck's seen its share of work. The inclusion of a spare transmission and transfer case suggests the owner's been serious about keeping it running, though. At $5,000, you're looking at a solid work truck price for something that needs some TLC but isn't a complete project. The 351 Windsor is a fantastic engine when properly sorted, and having the original motor plus spare drivetrain parts adds value. This could be perfect for someone who needs a capable work truck and isn't afraid to turn a wrench occasionally. 12. We're looking at a 1979 Ford F-350 that's listed for $20,000. But hold up, there's something interesting here. The seller is actually directing potential buyers to a Bring a Trailer auction ending on January 24th, which is a completely different ballgame. Let's talk about what we can see. This appears to be a clean example with just 44,000 miles showing on the odometer, and the seller's claiming it's in excellent condition. It's equipped with an automatic transmission, and being an F-350, This would have been Ford's heavy-duty offering for 1979. Now, I've got to be straight with you folks. This listing is a bit unusual. The seller's using Craigslist to direct traffic to a Bring a Trailer auction, which is actually a smart marketing move, but that $20,000 price tag might not reflect the final auction price at all. BAT auctions for well-preserved 70s trucks can sometimes go significantly higher or lower, depending on the bidding action. Without more details about the truck's condition, options, or history, it's hard to make a full assessment. However, if it's truly in excellent condition with low miles, it could be quite valuable. These late 70s F-350s are gaining popularity among collectors, especially if they're well preserved. My advice? If you're seriously interested, head over to Bring a Trailer to see the full listing with detailed photos and description. That's where you'll find the real story about this truck's condition and history. Remember, BAT typically attracts serious collectors and usually features higher-end examples, so expect strong competition if this truck is as nice as suggested. 13. We're checking out a 1976 GMC Sierra stepside that's caught my eye at $10,000, and let me tell you why this one's interesting. First off, we're looking at a square body stepside, which is a pretty desirable body style, powered by the tried-and-true Chevy 350 V8, matched to a 350 automatic transmission. That's a bulletproof combination that's easy to maintain and has endless parts availability. With 86,000 miles showing, it's got some life experience, but that's not bad for a 47-year-old truck. I really appreciate the seller's honesty here. They're straight up telling us it's not a show truck, but rather a solid driver with potential. Being a desert truck from Nevada is a huge plus, folks. These square bodies are notorious for rust issues, but desert-kept vehicles typically avoid the worst of that. The seller claims it's about as rust-free as it can get considering the age, which is exactly what you want to hear. At $10,000 OBO, this is actually pretty fair in today's market for a running, driving, square-body stepside, especially one that's relatively rust-free. These trucks have been climbing in value, and the stepside beds are particularly sought after. If you're looking for a classic truck that you can drive and enjoy while gradually improving it, this could be your ticket. The 350/350 combo is super reliable, parts are readily available everywhere, and there's a massive aftermarket support for these trucks. Just make sure to check those typical GMC rust spots in person, around the cab corners, rocker panels, and bed mounts. Even though it's a desert truck, it never hurts to look closely. This seems like a solid driver-quality classic that you could either keep as is or gradually restore while still enjoying it. And hey, they're open to trades and offers, so there might be some wiggle room on that price. 14. We're looking at a 1975 Chevy Blazer Cheyenne that's listed for $15,500, and we need to have an honest conversation about what we're dealing with here. This is a Cheyenne trim level with the trailer special package, which is pretty desirable, and it's got a rebuilt 350 engine and automatic transmission. That's definitely a plus. Being a 4x4 model adds to its appeal, and with 100,000 miles, the mechanicals seem to have been addressed with those rebuilds. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the sellers being upfront about body rust issues. And we've got to appreciate that honesty. While they mention the floors and frame are solid, which is crucial, and the body mounts are good, also important, they're clear about mostly body rust. That's something you'll need to factor into your plans and budget. At $15,500, we need to think carefully here. While K5 Blazers are absolutely hot in today's market, especially Cheyenne models, this price feels a bit steep for a vehicle with acknowledged body rust issues, even with the rebuilt drivetrain. The original paint might appeal to some, but given the rust situation, this is likely going to need some serious body work if you want to preserve it long-term. If you're seriously interested, you'll want to thoroughly inspect those solid areas, especially where the frame and floors are concerned. While it's great that these crucial structural elements are reportedly good, verify everything in person. These K5s are awesome vehicles with a huge following, but at this price point, you might want to negotiate considering the bodywork that lies ahead. This could be a good project for someone who has bodywork skills or a good relationship with a body shop. 15. We're checking out a pretty interesting 1967 Chevy C20 Custom Camper Special that's listed for $13,500, and there's some cool stuff to talk about here. First off, this is a C20, the 3/4-ton model, and it's got the Custom Camper Special package, which is a pretty desirable option. Under the hood, you're getting the 327 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, which is a solid powertrain combo for these trucks. With 70,000 miles showing, it's got some life experience, but that's not bad for a 56-year-old workhorse. The seller's keeping the description pretty brief, but they're claiming it runs and drives great, which is always what you want to hear with a classic truck. Being a Custom Camper Special means it would have come with some heavy-duty components from the factory to handle camper duties, which typically included upgraded suspension, cooling, and electrical systems. At $13,500, we're in the middle range for 67 C20s in today's market. These trucks have been steadily climbing in value, and the Camper Special trim adds some desirability. The black paint looks decent in the listing, but as always with these old trucks, you'll want to check the usual rust spots, cab corners, rocker panels, and bed mounts in person. If you're looking for a classic heavy-duty pickup that can still do some work while turning heads, this could be worth checking out. The 327 is a great engine with plenty of parts availability, and these C20s were built to last. Just make sure to give it a thorough inspection, particularly of the frame and suspension components, given its history as a potential camper hauler. Remember, this is a cash-only deal according to the seller, which is pretty standard for classic vehicles. Could be a solid buy for someone looking for a vintage truck with some extra capability. 16. We're looking at a 1976 Ford F-150 that's listed for $9,200, and let me tell you why this Arizona truck deserves your attention. First off, being an original Arizona truck is a huge plus. These desert trucks typically avoid the rust issues that plague their northern counterparts. The seller's straight to the point about it being solid rust-free, which is exactly what you want to hear when shopping for a 70s truck. Here's what really catches my attention. We're looking at a truck with rebuilt mechanicals across the board. We're talking rebuilt engine, transmission, and transfer case. That's some serious mechanical refreshing that adds real value. With 100,000 miles showing, having these major components rebuilt means you're potentially looking at many more miles of reliable service. At $9,200, considering today's market for classic trucks and the mechanical work that's been done, this could be a pretty fair deal. These mid-70s F-150s are gaining popularity among collectors, especially rust-free examples. The fact that it's got a clean title and the major mechanical components have been rebuilt makes it particularly interesting. Now, the seller's description is pretty brief, so you'll definitely want to inspect everything in person. Even Arizona trucks can have issues, so check the usual spots: cab corners, door bottoms, and bed mounts. Also, verify the quality of those rebuilds and get any documentation if available. If everything checks out as described, this could be a solid buy for someone wanting a classic F-150 that's ready to drive without immediate mechanical needs. Just make sure to do your due diligence on those rebuilds, when they were done, who did them, and what parts were used. Could be a great platform for either preservation or gradual improvement while enjoying it. 17. Let me tell you about this absolutely gorgeous piece of American automotive history, a 1969 Ford F-250 Camper Special that's currently up for grabs at McManus Motors for $19,550. This classic pickup is rocking a beautiful green paint job both inside and out, and with just 63,928 miles on the clock, it's got plenty of life left in it. Under the hood, you'll find a 4.9L inline-six engine with a turbo setup, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. That's pure classic truck goodness right there. The Camper Special trim was Ford's answer for folks who wanted a bit more muscle for their recreational needs back in the day. What's really catching my eye here is that clean title and the relatively low mileage for a vehicle that's over 50 years old. You don't find many 69 F-250s in this kind of condition anymore, especially Camper Specials. This isn't just a truck. It's a piece of Ford's heritage that represents the golden era of American pickups. For those wondering about authenticity, you can verify everything with the VIN, F25Y KF75915. It's being sold through McManus Motors, and honestly, for a classic F250 of this vintage and specification, the asking price is in line with the market. This is the kind of truck that turns heads at car shows and still has the capability to do some real work if you need it to. Just imagine cruising down the highway in this beauty. 18. Let me tell you about this incredible time capsule I just found. A 1984 Ford Bronco 2 XLT that's basically a museum piece on wheels. This isn't just any old Bronco. We're looking at a one-family-owned vehicle that's been babied since it rolled off the lot in Carson City, Nevada. Get this, it's only got 64,000 original miles on the clock. That's barely broken in for these tough little 4x4s. The current owner has kept this Bronco in excellent condition through meticulous maintenance, and it shows. No accidents, clean title, and it's still rocking its 4WD system with an automatic transmission. What makes this find even more special is its history. It's been in the same family since new, purchased right there in Carson City. That's the kind of provenance that serious collectors dream about. When a vehicle has been cared for by the same family for nearly 40 years, you know it's been loved. At $16,900, sure, it might seem steep to some, but for a Bronco 2 in this condition with documented history and such low miles, that's actually pretty fair in today's classic SUV market. The owner's clearly serious about finding the right buyer. No tire kickers or lowballers welcome. This is one of those rare opportunities to own a piece of Ford's SUV history that hasn't been modified or beaten up over the years. If you're into original, well-preserved 80s SUVs, this Bronco 2 deserves your attention. 19. We've got a real treat for you. A 1971 Chevy C10 that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $8,000. This classic truck has been through some changes, but it's still got plenty of potential for the right buyer. Now let's be real here. This C10 isn't in perfect condition. The seller admits that the driver's side floor in the cab has some rust and needs work. But hey, that's just part of the charm of owning a vintage ride, right? Plus, the rockers have already been replaced, so that's one less thing to worry about. Under the hood, you'll find, well, nothing. That's right. This C10 is currently without a motor. But don't let that discourage you. The truck does come with a 350 turbo transmission and a stock rear end, so you've got a solid foundation to build upon. And just imagine the satisfaction of dropping in a powerful engine and bringing this beauty back to life. One of the coolest features of this C10 is the RideTech 3-switch air ride suspension. With the flip of a switch, you can adjust the ride height and stance of the truck, giving it a seriously cool look. And speaking of looks, the bed has been tubbed with wheel wells and shot with a durable Rhino bed liner, adding both style and functionality. The odometer shows 68,269 miles, but it's worth noting that it has rolled over. So, while the actual mileage may be higher, this truck has certainly seen its share of adventures over the years. And with a clean title and manual transmission, it's ready for plenty more. Overall, this 1971 Chevy C10 is a project truck with a ton of potential. It may need some work here and there, but that's all part of the fun for a true car enthusiast. And at just $8,000, it's a steal for anyone looking to own a piece of classic American automotive history. 20. We've got a real blast from the past. A 1969 Chevrolet C20 that's up for grabs at Escondido Auto Supercenter. This classic 3/4-ton pickup is sure to turn heads and get your heart racing. First things first, let's talk about the price. At $20,000, this C20 isn't exactly a bargain basement find. But when you consider the rarity and the nostalgia factor of a truck like this, it's definitely worth a closer look. Now, the dealership's description is a bit generic and doesn't give us a ton of specific details about the condition of this particular C20. They do mention that it's a used vehicle with 78,697 miles on the odometer. The exterior is a classic white, while the interior is a cool green color that really pops. Under the hood, you'll find an automatic transmission that should make this truck a breeze to drive. And with a 3/4-ton rating, you know it's got plenty of power to haul whatever you need. Of course, as with any used vehicle, there may be some imperfections or signs of wear and tear. The dealership doesn't mention anything specific about the condition of this C20, so it's definitely worth giving it a thorough inspection before making a decision. One thing to keep in mind is that the advertised price may not include all the fees and charges that come with buying a car from a dealership. The description mentions things like government fees, taxes, finance charges, and document preparation charges that could add to the final cost. Overall, if you're a fan of classic Chevrolet trucks and you've got the budget for it, this 1969 C20 could be a really cool addition to your collection. It's got the vintage style and the rugged durability that made these trucks so popular back in the day. And with a little bit of TLC, it could be a real showstopper at any car show or cruise night.